Hey everyone, welcome back. Icon here. Thanks so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. A few things before we get going here. One, we are on board with GUNLESS. I know he doesn't have a face cam. I don't really know what the deal is, but sometimes he does have it on, sometimes he doesn't. But this is GUNLESS. He just doesn't have his face cam on. And then the second thing, a lot of people have been looking or have been asking for some domination or some search and destroy, something a little bit different than hardpoint. So I am going to go ahead, and this is domination on the map Hackney Yard if you haven't picked that up already. But I will say that I don't necessarily love to break down domination matchups just because of the fact that it's kind of the same strategy over and over again. And I'll go ahead and I'll explain exactly what that is here in a minute. And the other thing is that search and destroy isn't really played on stream because remember, 2/5 out of a matchup. So you have a hard point, you have a search and destroy, you have a dom, and then you have another hard point and then another search and destroy. So a match against another pro team is 5 maps and 2 of those is search. So if there's a way to really take advantage against an opponent, it's by having better strats in search and destroy. So nobody streams search and destroy. Sometimes they will scrim it, but if they do scrim it, it'll be off stream. So if you're looking for search and destroy, the only way that I can really break down search and destroy is after a tournament has taken place. So I definitely do that when there's a tournament, but that's neither here nor there. So let's talk about the actual strategy that's going on in this map. So right above my head, you'll see that there's a mini map, and in that mini map, there's A, B, and C, right? 3 domination flags. The best setup for this map is an A-B hold. So you want to hold down A and B, and you want to spawn trap or do whatever you can to keep your enemies at C. Let's talk about why this is so good. So if you're new to my channel, I've broken this down a couple times, but not very often. So essentially, if you can hold down these 2 spots, then you're going to end up winning this map. This is just how it goes. After you lock down these 2, there are some important places around the map that you want to try to lock down. First one is being top L and bottom L. So if you can get somebody top L and you can get somebody bottom L, or even if they're top AC or somewhere on this side of the map, you want to lock down this lane, right? If you can hold this lane of the map, then Seattle's not going to be able, or whoever your enemy is, isn't going to be able to push through there. The other thing that you want to do is you want to get people locked down on these head glitches. So whether it's there or here or over towards forklift or this top building in the back or even top catwalk, if you get on these head glitches, then the other 2 lanes that you have to worry about is you just want to hold down this mid lane, right? Don't let anybody's leak through the middle of the map and then push and flank behind you. And the other thing is the overextend over by P4. So overextend is a term that's used pretty often. So essentially, if you're the opposite team, and I'll talk about this when we flip sides, but the overextend is to push out, again, if you're spawning back here by C, is to push out this side of the map. And if you can get A, then essentially that's called an overextend. And once we flip sides here, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's the strategy, is to hold down A and B, lock down the 3 lanes, and then just keep your enemy locked inside of that spawn trap. Now, what you just saw right there was GUNLESS was holding down that right-hand side of the map. And as they lost control of B-Dom, he figured he was going to try to neutralize. So, you know what? I'm going to stop this again. I know, believe me, there's just a lot to talk about here. But essentially what happened is Seattle had C, and they pushed up, and they were able to get kills and get control of B-Dom. Well, essentially what happened is GUNLESS was over here watching this flank. And he made the decision that if he was to run mid-map and try to help, he wouldn't be of much service, right? There were a couple people, 2 or 3 people from Seattle inside B. He wasn't going to get a 3-piece. So the most effective thing that he could do next is he was going to overextend into C. And if you can just neutral this, this makes your enemies make a decision. So let's go ahead, and they have control of C, and now they have control of B. And they're trying to lock Chicago into an A spawn trap. This is really hard to do. We'll talk about why at a later point in time. On the second side, we'll talk about why this is so tough. But when GUNLESS went forward, that forced Seattle to make a decision. Were they going to send somebody back, or were they going to continue to try to push in towards A? Now, that spawn at A is really hard to flip from this right-hand side of the map. So had GUNLESS been successful at pushing forward and neutralizing this or capping it, now Seattle has to send somebody back towards C because they want to maintain their 2-flag advantage. So if you're GUNLESS, once you get that neutral, you can rotate back towards B-Dom. And if you're able to get inside of B-Dom, now you have a man advantage, right? You have at least 5 people going towards B, and the most the enemy could have is 4 because they sent somebody back towards C. So in terms of the strategy realm, that's really what we were looking at there. It's a really simple, it's something that could easily be overlooked, but that's what he was trying to do. If he could go in and overextend towards C and just neutral it, then that would force Seattle to send somebody back to recapture C. In the meantime, he's hitting B, and now they have a man advantage, at least 1 man advantage, as they're trying to recapture B. So what you're seeing now is that they were able to regain, right? So A and B, they have recaptured, but where the leak is springing now is on the right-hand side of the map. So this is what's the typical route. So essentially, let me go ahead and pause it again. I'm not going to do this all that often, I swear, but Seattle had C. So Seattle was spawning at C, and they were able to get a team wipe. So they pushed this side of the map. When GUNLESS died mid-map from top P4, you saw on his screen 3 people pushing on this side of the map. So all you have to do is, if you're just successful at getting through and you start to capture A and you get a team wipe, where is Chicago going to spawn? The only place to put them now, they're not going to put them right here, right? That's right where Seattle is now. You spawn them out over towards C. So if you're able to do that, now you can just continue on. If you're able to capture A, now you just swing forward and you capture B, and you've essentially flipped the map. So now Chicago will be spawning on this side of the map, so they have to capture C, and then they just have to do the opposite strategy that we've just been talking about for the last couple minutes. So that's the prototypical way of flipping the different sides of the map, is if you can overextend over towards P4 through forklift and then get behind over towards A. Now all of a sudden you have the easier way to get into B. Not saying it's an automatic, right? Because these are still pro teams, they're still pros, they're all still really good, but that's what you were looking at. And even though it took them a little while, they were able to get through. But the problem is that, so they have A, B, and C, which essentially that's going to put Chicago right in the middle of the map. So since they're in the middle of the map, you don't really know where they're going to end up going. So right now, Chicago has already taken back B, and they almost got A. We'll see what happens here. As again, this is kind of in limbo at the moment, right? When I think of domination, for me personally, it just always seems like a big game of tug of war. It's just one team trying to tug a little bit more so that they can get AB set up while the other team doesn't have it. So at that point in time, everything was kind of up in limbo, but now it's been regained. Now GUNLESS is securing B. You can see they have the right-hand side of the map locked down. They are being a little bit contested on the actual B flag, but now that I think that was Arcides. Now that Arcides came in and backed up GUNLESS, now they have control of B. They have middle of the map locked down. They have the right-hand side, and they're right back to where they were before. Unfortunately, in the bottom left-hand side of the map, GUNLESS has his ads down there, so you can't quite see how much time is left. I think it's somewhere in like the 35-second range. So all they're trying to do right now is you're just trying to hold down AB. If you're capable of just holding down AB at this point in time, then you're just giving yourself a 1 point, so plus 1 point every 5 seconds. So the way domination works is every 5 seconds you get a point based on how many flags you have. So if you have a 2-cap advantage, that gives you a 1 point advantage every 5 seconds. So with only 30 seconds left, essentially you're just trying really hard to get that extra 6-point advantage. So that's why you didn't really see them pushing forward or pushing the right-hand flank or anything like that. So as the first round comes to a close, they have a 25-point lead, which is great. But they started this match on the good side. Now we'll see what happens when they spawn out on the bad side. Remember, they're up by 25. So if you're Seattle, you're not necessarily too worried because as this next round starts up, now Seattle's on the good side. And if you're down by 25, that's essentially 2 minutes worth of having that flag advantage, right? So you don't have to push forward. You don't have to get a triple cap. You don't have to go forward and neutralize or anything like that. If you're Seattle, really all you have to worry about is just holding down A, B, and trapping Chicago over at C. Now, one thing that I just kind of saw off the rip here is I noticed that everybody hit B. Everybody from Chicago, Arcities, Formal, Scum, everybody hit B. So they didn't send anybody on the overextend over towards C, over towards P4. They all tried to go ahead and they tried to push into B. And if you're Chicago, this isn't necessarily your best course of action, right? Because if you're not successful, if you do this over and over and over again and you don't end up getting B, then you're going to lose this map. The way easier thing to do, even though it takes more time, is to push out that overextend towards A, flip the map, and then go A, B. But with that, guys, the greatest thing about scrims is that we can go ahead, we can listen in. Again, we don't break down domination very much, so I do want to go ahead and let you guys listen to just exactly what they're talking about in terms of their strategy. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn up their team comms, and I'll still chime in where I feel like it's important. There are a couple things in this map that I also want to point out, but with that, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn this up, and let's hear what they're talking about.
There, get into it. Get inside B while we have the timing. No, we don't have the timing. And that's tough.
You know what? Real quick, I know sometimes I just see things and I really want to point it out, but you just saw right there that Chicago had control of C, they had control of B, and GUNLESS was pushed up, right? Chicago was pushed up all the way up here. And you can see that as soon as they went down, now the map is already flipping. If you look at the top middle of your screen, right there, Seattle's already capturing B. So this is already about to flip, and all it took was one team kill. Well, why don't you want to have CB on this map? The biggest reason why, not only because the spawn is so close to B, right? If you're spawning right here, look how close this is compared to if you're spawning on the opposite side of the map, right? So not only is the spawn so much closer, but the biggest thing is that it's so much easier to escape, right? If you're talking about trying to spawn trap somebody at A, look at all these routes that they can escape from. They can go through that gate and go left of that white van, or they can go right. They can go right by a police car, or they could flank through A and they can get out this way, even go mid-map. Then not only that, but let me go ahead and let me erase this. These three walls back here by A can be jumped over anywhere. So it's not like you know exactly where people are going to be coming from. And then if you go this way, you can jump on all of these boxes that are right here. So it's just almost impossible to lock a team, to spawn kill a team inside of A, just because there's so many different ways that you can get out. And then once you do get out, then it's basically you're so close to B that it's really easy to capture B. Now, if you look at this from the other side, think about the ways to get out. Say you're the team that's spawn trapped here and you want to get out. There's one route here. Now, I know you can go up and jump over, but that can be guarded by one person, right? If you have somebody top L, you can kill both those guys. You can look at both those ways from just being top L or bottom L, I guess, but still. Then if you want to look at the left side, there's one choke point, right? Now, I know you can jump on blue van in this little and you can go over towards heaven, but that takes way more time, right? And even that line of sight, that can be looked at from one place. If you have somebody up on this dumpster right here, you can view all of these. And then there is one other thing, right? You can go in towards C, you can run up top and you can go heaven, but that takes like 10, 12 seconds to even make that flank route. So in the time that takes, you could just try to hit that right hand or that left hand side really quickly and save yourself like 5 or 6 seconds on the map. So if you're wondering why exactly do you just want to have that A-B setup, that's why, because it's almost impossible to spawn trap a team at A, and once you do get through at A, you're basically right on top of the B flag anyways.
Yeah, dead. Oh my god. Another one there, Kill that guy. Good up 3.
He's going cat, I think.
No, top L's open.
There's one their door and probably top L. One their door and
You
probably.
guys get on the flag?
I'm watching.
Alright, go. Give up pinch. Give up pinch. Give up pinch.
He could be in their door.
Trying to get your top L. Trying to get your top L right now. Okay, you got that?
I'm absolutely.
Let me go ahead, and I want to point this out real quick also, because you just heard GUNLESS say, give up pinch, give up pinch. So what the heck does that mean? So as Chicago was here, they were trying to push forward into B-Dom, and rather than cap B-Dom real quick, you saw there for a moment that a couple people were pushed forward a little bit, because essentially they're trying to get 1 or 2 down. If you can take a couple kills here, then it's much easier to capture B. But what does it mean by he's saying give up pinch? What that means is that when they were pushed up into B, they also had somebody mid-map watching the push through middle. He wasn't running middle, he was just watching that push. Why is that important? The reason why it's important to have somebody watching your pinch is because, say, you know what? All right, Chicago gets through, they've got 2 on B, they've got 1 pushed forward, they have 1 top L, right? You have all of this locked down. Well, if somebody from Seattle is able to push through mid-match and pinch from behind them, so if they go bottom L and they look from behind them, nobody's going to be looking that way, right? Because if you're Chicago and you're capturing B, where are you going to be looking? You're going to be on B looking at these areas. And if you're looking at these areas, you're never going to see somebody pinching you from behind. So if that person is able to pinch and look from behind you, that's going to erase all of the progress you made just because you don't have 1 lane looked down. So essentially, GUNLESS came off of spawn. He noticed that there was somebody. GUNLESS spawned here. He pushed forward. He noticed that somebody was here. So he said, give up pinch. That guy went top AC. And now he pushed forward and he was watching their pinch.
Try to get C. Yeah, try to get C. It's app. That's here.
Now, what you just saw right there is Apathy was able to push through and he was able to neutral C. And when he neutral C, this is exactly what we were talking about with the strategy with GUNLESS earlier. So what that did, remember, they had a flag advantage, right? Chicago had BC for just a second. But as soon as they were set up on B, Apathy was in the same position that GUNLESS was before. Apathy was over by P4, and he was able to push forward, and he was actually able to capture C, and then he just hung out there, right? So if you're able to do that, and you're just able to sit in one of these areas here, then Chicago has to make the decision. They have to send somebody back towards C, because if they have B, they're still down a flag. So you want to have a 2 flag cap on domination, right? So if they send somebody back and Apathy's able to get that kill, they still have a 2 flag advantage. So what just happened is 2 people from Chicago ended up pushing back. And when that happened, now who has a man advantage on B-Dom? Seattle does. So just the little overextend and the neutralize there forced Chicago to go back and recapture C, and now they're in the same setup that they were in, right? How quickly something can change when you have AB or when you have CB instead of AB.
Why do you think I'm saying to wait?
Why are you raging? You doing something wrong? Defensive? Native top L?
No, because you just said something that I would.
You just saw GUNLESS kind of joking around a little bit, but that's kind of like an Overwatch term, right? They had somebody go into B and he died, and then another person went into B and he died. So it was the whole idea of staggering your deaths, right? That happens in Overwatch some where it's 6v6. So if you push by yourself, you're gonna die. And then if somebody behind you pushes, you're going to die also. So that was kind of the same idea there, is that don't stagger your deaths. Let's push as a team so that we can be coordinated and take advantage of having potential numbers.
I got B.
And just like that, you can see that they're down by 2, right? They're losing.
I spawned green too.
I don't see top L, bro.
Top L, he's looking at me. Good job.
So now it's down to a tie ball game, but they don't have map control. They don't have AB like you want until right now. Look at this push that's coming through. Look up at the minimap in the top left-hand corner. What do you see? 1, 2, 3, and this 4th green arrow is about to hop the flag. So when it's a 139 to 138 ball game, this is what you're talking about. If this is the point in time where you can flip, right, they're on A, they're about to capture A, Seattle is on C, Seattle's about to capture C, and now that you've flipped, you have a 4-point lead with, what is this, a minute left or so, 2 minutes left, somewhere in there. I wish that we could see in the bottom left-hand corner, but now that you have this advantage, all you have to do, just lock down the left-hand side of the map, lock down mid, lock down the right-hand overextend. If you can just hold these 2 flags, you're going to end up winning.
Every off your mid push. Green just jumped out, dead. 5. They're spawning green, guys. You guys can push green crate, You have the time.
GUNLESS, they're saying 5. That just means that there are 5 dead. So all they're doing is they're just pushing forward. If you can push forward just a little bit, they're not trying to get in and capture C. They're just pushing forward to gain map control, right? Because the further you get up towards C-Dom, that just means there's another team battle that Seattle has to win to get close to B, right? If you're just sitting inside of B-Dom and you're just trying to hold it just by sitting inside of it, if you lose that team battle, you're going to lose B. But if you're pushed up all the way towards C and then you lose a gun battle, well, by the time you can get back to B, again, it's just going to be another wave of team battles that Seattle would have to win. So with that, they do end up winning this. It seems like a pretty big victory, right? What was it, 15 points, somewhere in there? It seems like a lot, but it wasn't too long ago, a minute and a half ago, where this was a tie ball game. The only reason why they came through and they won was because they were able to flip spawns there. So if you're looking at the score, Envoy dropped 28, Scump dropped 31. Even though Octane won the AR battle, right? He was 28-20 and Formal was 14-20. So even though Octane won that AR battle, where this really took place was inside the hills or being able to push forward and flip. That's the work of the SMG players. So if you're able to win the gun battles inside the domination points, if you're able to win the gun battles when you're trying to flip, if you're able to push forward and trying to flip and get AB, that's how you end up winning these matchups. So I know that this is a longer video. This is one of the longest videos that I've put out, but everything's not as straightforward when you're breaking down a domination game. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments below. I love the interaction. So anything you guys put down there, I read, I get back to you. I love that. If you're new around here, this is the first time that you've checked out one of my videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a like before you head on your way. And with that, guys, I will catch you in tomorrow's upload.